So welcome to the very first, actually very second, Urban Design Group Student Awards presentation. My name's Alan Thompson. I'm co-chair of the National Urban Design Awards. Some of you may have been here last week. Some of you may not have been here last week. So I'm going to bore some of you with the same introduction, but bear with me. I know it's hard to believe, but once upon a time, I was too a student. I studied urban design at IUAV and DIAST at the University of Venice, and that was nearly 30 years ago. So urban design has changed a lot in that time. There seems to be far more bicycles and significantly less gondolas. So there have been changes. Anyhow, since then, I've come to understand that there is no right way to be an urban designer. In fact, there are many equally valid ways of approaching a discipline. This will be convincingly demonstrated, particularly today with the work that we're going to see. And was demonstrated last week, I think. They're a very diverse set of schemes. So urban design has had a pretty checkered past. We did unspeakable things last century. And on an industrial scale, and we're rightly ashamed of this legacy and now striving for the very best practice in urban design. Clearly, people are at the centre of good urban design. And this is why UDG calls our programme the People Friendly Places Awards. So at very least, the public are expecting us to do no more damage to their towns and cities. Of course, we can do much better than that. We're fully capable of bringing delightful, prosperous, sustainable new places into the world. The Urban Design Group is committed to this mission. We seek to uncover best practice, share it and promote it. We're champions of good design, and that's why we're here today. Francis Thibaud, who co-founded the UDG in the far distant past when there were less bikes and more gondolas, Francis was an absolute champion of good design. His generous bequeath has supported the Student Award for many years. He would be proud to see the ongoing work the UDG are doing in promoting the next generation of designers. Just a quick plug here. Please come join us. Help us to champion good design. We welcome your ideas, your advice, and we want to get to know you, and we want to help you to get to know each other. So please sign up. You're absolutely 100% welcome. So what are we doing here today? Well, last year we provided a platform for the shortlisted professional practices to share their work to a much larger audience. And this year it's your turn. You're at the very beginning of your careers and you really need the exposure and celebration far more than us old timers. So quick word to our commended student presenters. Put simply, you're here today because your work is outstanding. It demonstrates that a new generation can not only be fully committed to doing no harm, they can also be dedicated to producing wonderful, joyful, people-friendly places. I think we really need to congratulate you for the work you've done. And we commend you for the talent and dedication required to arrive here today. It's really an achievement. So Sneha, if you can, you could, I think you might have permission to share your screen.
All right, I'm going to present our academic project, Cultural Buffet of Wicker and Burngreave, which was in the framework of Ecologies of Home Studio. And as a broader concept, we had looked at the idea of a cultural nostalgia for a hometown. To give context of the site, the two neighborhoods, Wicker and Burngreave, are located in Sheffield City, north of its town centre, and are bound by different urban conditions such as River Don that runs around the neighborhood, the highways running through, the railway line cutting across the two neighborhoods. So these physical conditions, as well as certain the socio-cultural context that the neighborhoods sit within, has created certain boundaries between the neighborhoods and the rest of the city, as well as within the neighborhoods. The neighborhood currently is home to number of international communities from different countries. And these are some of the site photos. So these are the Wicker arches that are central to the neighborhood. And the Spittle Hill Road, which runs through the neighborhood, hosts a lot of vibrant shops and food spaces. It also has a strong sense of a neighborhood. So you'll always see groups of people together around in the neighborhood. So with that aspect, we realized the neighborhoods have a really strong and rich cultural realm. And we started looking at the various spaces that exist within this neighborhood. To give examples of some, there were various groceries, restaurants, or even the community centers such as Forniville, the library, Sorby House, and Sadaka, which forms a strong network for these people. However, we also realized the neighborhoods don't really have a lot of open public spaces, or where these kind of cultural activities can even go further. So that formed one of the bases of our study. To give an overview, all the reds, oranges, yellows you see are all the food-related spaces that exist within this neighborhood. And we also looked at the different events that the community has hosted related to cultural activities or has aspired to host, which included even at an international level, such as the Amal Walk or Migration Matters Festival, and the music festivals or the carnivals that are specific to certain communities. So we realized that the neighborhood has a lot of existing cultural network, and all we were looking at doing was weave it together. So the purples and greens you see are the sites we identified where we could enhance and uplift the cultural narrative of the neighborhood, and I'll get into those in a bit. So we had the site study. However, we realized we had to build up the cultural context that we were trying to get into, and given the diversity of the communities that are there, we relied on different sources. So first was looking at the movies, documentaries that look at these communities, but we and trying to look at the nuances and of the different activities involved in the whole cycle of related to the food. So we also went out to site and sat there as customers, trying to understand the vibe of the place. So the different interior decorations in which they kind of relate to their hometowns, or big groups of people sharing of food across the tables, conversations in their local languages were some of the takeaways that we had from these experiences. And at this point, we had the opportunity to collaborate with Sadaka, which was the community center, up and coming, which is a local collective of rap, where they do rap songs, and also the larger studio that we were working with. And we got together on food, music, dance, and had a conversation with the community to get to know about their cultural aspects of their life. So we relied on different sources, such as we had placards of places to trigger conversations, because it kind of sometimes gets hard to talk on these things. We had household objects. So the one you see on top was got by one of the attendees, who shared the story of why she got it. People started showing photos from their phone galleries or just internet sourced ones, but that formed a framework for us to kind of lead to the planning. So we got back to planning, started figuring out that, okay, we want to do the food district, but how do we approach it? So the first step was to get them together as a food collective. And that's where the idea of the cultural buffet came in, where like a buffet, you kind of choose from different experiences, different cuisines, and you have a plethora of opportunities to explore, which we really wanted to celebrate through this project. And considering that its outskirts, the socio-cultural context, we realized it may or may not get the kind of funding you would want it to. So we divided it into a very phase-wise manner. So the first ones were the greens ones, where they are community-initiated activities. So you have the farms or the event spaces. And then the yellow ones, which are very independent of each other, so can be built as and when in a phase-wise manner. So those were the community homes, dining homes, and the market spaces that we imagined. And to keep this concept of a cultural district or a food district growing, we imagine it to eventually form an ecosystem across the country, because each city has such neighborhoods and which celebrate the food and culture that exists. So for it to kind of sustain and grow, it would eventually become a network of these food districts. So to come back to the design process, we started looking at the spaces we are intending to look at. And the idea was to create common places where different cuisines may or may not come together, but these typologies of eating out. So we started by identifying sites, and we looked at 4 kinds of sites. First were the arches. So except for the one arch that kind of cuts through the road, no other arches are kind of utilized right now. And that's when we thought these could be reappropriated as marketplaces. There were the redundant plots across the site, which we realized the potential for them to become urban farms. And given the frequent disruption of the groceries that we are experiencing, we do realize that they have the potential of growing local, and a lot of times communities have their own expertise in how to grow certain things. So we thought these could become spaces to experiment with that. There were a couple of abandoned structures along the road, which we thought would become the social hubs through the community home and dining houses. And the open spaces were more of a temporal event space that we imagined. So
Sneha, you have about 2 minutes.
Okay, so to come to the first set of spaces are the community homes and dining houses. To run through the dining house, it's a canteen kind of a setup at a ground floor, whereas family rooms with unique settings on the upper floor. And these are not just spaces to eat out, but also kind of providing upliftment to the community. So let's say as a woman living in that community, I can run my own business where I can bring in food that I sell during the lunchtime. So these were the kind of visuals we imagined, the interiors and the activities happening. The other one was the community home, which is a community home. So you can have movie screenings or small get-togethers, which often these families have back home, but don't have the space in their social housing. The upper one was where you can bring your own food, and the uppermost was another kind of a family space. So again, these were the spaces we imagined for it. And the last one was the market spaces. So the arches were where we thought of the vegetable and meat markets, and the adjoining areas were the farms or outdoor cooking where you could do barbecue, or so it had that provision of the platform. So that's the kind of space we were looking at, where you also get a space to put out your local arts. So this was the gist of the different spaces we imagined, and eventually work with the existing network of that exists. So it forms a holistic food district of the food neighborhood of Wicker and Burngreave, and that is how it would operate. So you have the physical design and proposals, the actual map which works with the existing restaurants and food spaces, and eventually take it to a virtual space. Yeah, thank you.
Tremendous. Thank you so much for your presentation. You guys are from University College London, and the project is called Beddington Fortified. So if you speak for 10 minutes, if you can, I'll give you a nudge around 2 minutes. And I can see your presentation. I can see it going into full screen mode slowly. Let's hope, fingers crossed.
Okay.
Still,
everything's good.
Still hesitating. Looks great. Yeah, you're away by the look of it. Off you go.
Okay, perfect.
Hello and welcome. Yeah, we are from University College, and we have studied urban design and city planning at the Bartlett School of Planning, and we will be graduating this year. So my name is Elisha. I am an assistant urban design consultant at Place Services.
I'm Marco Mack, and I'm an urban planner at Pryor and Partners. Is Anjali here?
Anjali is on the list, yes.
She's struggling a little to introduce herself.
Does Anjali need to be a co-host as well, or is it just you sharing your screen, Marco?
I think maybe she's having problem with the audio.
Yeah, I was
am
having
I audible
problems.
right now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can
Yes,
hear you
yes,
now.
yes. Okay.
Welcome,
Sorry about
Anjali.
that. Hi, I'm Anjali, and I work as a planning assistant for the City of London. We can jump right into it. So for our entry in this competition, the three of us combined our coursework from a module focusing on sustainability to deliver what we've titled Beddington Fortified. Now this project serves as a concept that's rooted in integrating utilitarian elements of urban spaces like waste management, recycling, energy production within the city with schemes for enhancing social value for its residents. And we aim to do so through delivering high quality public realm within a singular location. Presently, these functions are seen as mutually exclusive of each other, and there's very few examples where functions like recycling and farming are integrated with educational facilities and are accessible within the public realm.
Sure, everyone would agree that the UK is facing a lot of issues at the moment. Our food system is broken. We are throwing away 4.5 million tons of edible food every year and letting them rot and turn into greenhouse gases. The cost of living crisis is causing families to choose between heat or eat. In London, 400,000 kids are going to bed hungry every day. Due to supply chain issues and extreme weather events caused by the climate crisis, supermarkets are running out of tomatoes and salads. To solve these problems, we urgently need to build urban systems that are self-sufficient and locally resilient. We also need to move from a linear mode of production and consumption to a circular economy by creating loops for the flow of resources in our urban systems.
As for policy context, we have reviewed 4 plans for this proposal, including the London Environmental Strategy, South London's Waste Management Strategy, Sutton and Croydon's local plan. What all these plans share in common is the desire to improve the quality of people's lives, conserve existing wildlife, and is sustainable for the future cities and is conscious about protecting our earth.
Now, this project is set between Croydon and Sutton at the end of the Wandle Valley, covering 124 hectares of area, and serves as a replicable model for maximizing usability of land through integrated functions within city limits. It utilizes existing policy as a base to support this proposal, where waste management, intensive farming, and energy production are delivered alongside intensified ecological landscapes and a variety of accessible green spaces in the urban environment. The existing site is presently a large open space with marshlands to the west and brownfield sites to the north, lacking access to and through the site. There's also a lack of transport links through this large plot. This proposal presently is from an underused plot of land, and we aim to produce renewable energy, manage organic waste, enhance biodiversity through ecological restoration, and deliver community value by making this ecosystem accessible to the public. Additionally, by introducing aquaponics and intensive farming on the same site, this proposal further stretches the usability of the land by addressing food security within the local community.
Our proposal sees waste as resources. Organic waste are collected from nearby residences and turned into biogas and compost through biodigesters. Sewage are purified through the Beddington wastewater treatment plants next door and turned into clean water. These renewed resources are then fed into lakes, aquaponic domes, markets, orchards to provide food and bring life to the local community.
As mentioned before, our aim was to try and use space in a flexible way. Biodigesters on the site are pushed deep into the ground with earth berms created over their hemispherical tops. And as you can see in the section here, these biodigesters function not only to produce biofuel and organic digestate, which is directly utilized within the site. Their placement has now allowed the opportunity for producing interactive landscapes for the community. Hence, what would have been large towering structures on these fields are now closer to human scale, and they permit visual and spatial continuity over the site and can be experienced in a multitude of ways as well.
Next slide.
We can see it, Elisha. That's fine.
Okay, I think there's a little bit of a confusion. Anyway, the public realm is the main focus of these aquaponic domes, being accessible for education and tourism purposes. This would possibly include tours around the farm, showing how aquaponics works in educating the public on alternative methods of farming. The public realm also has a lot of outdoor space to wander and use the space for how people wish. This can include bird watching or taking an Instagram photo in the lavender fields, which of course would boost our online clout. Finally, there will be space along the main path for special occasions, such as farmers markets, where farmers can sell their local produce, making this community space their own.
I'd like to add that this collage is representative of flexible uses proposed on the site. And to the left, you can see a little pool of water, which is actually the marshlands from Beddington farmlands right now. And what it shows is that we've tried to enhance the ecology within surrounding this area. And then another point on this collage is that you'll notice that at every point, we've given the opportunity for the public to access and explore the space in a non-restrictive form. And we've taken care to create continuous paths for walking and cycling throughout the site, which further acts as a significant link for through access over this large plot of land. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. To tie it all together, it's the cyclic transfer of matter from the food we consume to the waste we discard to finally produce biofuel and manure, therefore allowing local communities to partly stabilize their present lifestyle. Community value is at the core of this proposal, and by creating a variety of different spaces, it allows the flow of multiple functions through this singular system on a singular plot of land, thereby maximizing the productivity of the proposal, ultimately creating self-sustaining local environments. With the integration of waste management within our cities, it is also essential to host spaces for enhancing knowledge and experience associated with a newer way of consumption and reuse. That involves new systems for discarding organic matter, collection, and understanding its lifestyle. So education and community centers on site can then aid local authorities with campaigns centered around organic waste recycling, food production, energy, and biodiversity, which could help accelerate the shift to a new system of waste management.
As we see in the collages, aquaponics is a system of farming that is influenced by hydroponics. I'm sure many of you have heard of hydroponics living in London by the illegal businesses that thrive using hydroponics. But in this proposal, we would like to use it for food security and for a number of reasons, such as our farming system being unsustainable for the future. On a podcast recently on BBC4, the food programme, the speaker said, "We are only 7 meals away from anarchy every day, so we need to be more conscious about how we use water and energy." And this is what we aim to resolve. How aquaponics works is we would use the energy from biogas to supply UV light to stimulate photosynthesis in the plants. Then we would create fish tanks where fish would release debris, and these nutrients can be absorbed by the plants, which will cleanse the water, and the water will be put back into the tanks. This creates a renewable source of obtaining fruit and vegetables that don't rely on solid soil quality, fertilizers, and other complications that come with traditional farming. This also provides the opportunity to maximize this space by creating vertical farms and horizontal farms on many different levels. The geodesic domes were first created by an architect named Jonathan Ball from the Eden Project in Cornwall. Its iconic shape represents creating a distinct landmark on this site. This large dome is planned to host many functions, such as serving education, tourism on the Botanic Park, whilst other domes will be purely for agricultural purposes.
I've neglected my duty a bit. You've probably only got a minute left, you guys. If you could wrap up, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. So maybe I can talk about the sustainable outcomes. So we quantified the sustainable outcomes, and the biodigesters on site will have 800 tons of digestive capacity for organic waste and are able to generate renewable biogas to power 72 homes. And with ecological intensifications and protection of the wetland, we will provide new and diversified habitats. The newly proposed 7.4 hectare of foraging land in the south will allow animals and including humans to snack on the fruit trees together. This helps to foster a stronger human-nature bond. For well-being and community, the proposal will have a significant impact on providing local fresh food for the community. Thanks to the high yield from the aquaponic farms, the site will be able to grow 604 tons of fresh produce every year, enough to feed around 21,000 residents one serving of salad every day. And to sum up, at the end of the day, we hope to see this as a flexible model, not just for Beddington. There's huge potential for this model to be applied to similar underutilized sites around the UK for fortifying local urban systems and building healthier and more resilient communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. So maybe if you'd like to unshare for a bit, and we can ask Rafael Macpherson from University of Brighton to start sharing. And he is going to be sharing a project called A New Life for Shoreham Cement Works.
All right, so I'll start just saying that Shoreham Cement Works is an abandoned quarry, and it's a cement industry plant which has been tied to the landscape for quite a long time. First through the extraction of the raw materials, but nowadays is through the prominent presence in the landscape, which speaks of the area's history and its geology. Many people consider it a scar in the landscape, but it has its own identity too. The approach for any redevelopment, in my view, starts by focusing on working with the existing landscape and the natural processes within to ensure that the future communities benefit from this. So my aim here is to deliver a place for future low carbon communities through working with the existing geography rather than applying a tabula rasa approach. So as you see, the site is located in the narrowest point of the South Downs National Park. It's closely located to settlements along the south coast and in short distance from the railway station. The first quarry appeared in the 19th century together with the railway line. Then in the 20th century, many buildings were erected for the production of cement, and then the quarry was expanded to the east. And then it was abandoned in the 90s and then allocated for redevelopment in 2019. Historically, the chalk was extracted and transported through vehicles and conveyors into the main building, where it was processed. You can see the impressive kilns here that dominate one of the two bays of the building. Then the resulting product, the cement, was transported from the building on conveyors over the road for distribution, either by road or by rail. And this site's allocated for development. So the allocation policy, when I examined it, I saw that quite vague in the typology and mixed-use development expected. It is not robust with the approach for environmental restoration of the site, and it's not setting out any basic principle for it. It also says that supports sustainable travel patterns, but I find the policy not clear or strong enough in this aspect. So my view is that the mix of uses should be aimed to create community and complement each other. And then the expectations on restoration and active travel should be more ambitious given the opportunities of this particular site. There are some areas that you see in purple that suffer from surface water flooding on site. This is because the road's embankment works as a dam for the water as it goes down. And there is also substantial ground pollution within the center of the site, which would difficult development of this particular area. There are a number of opportunities for this site. There is a potential opportunity to connect to the South Downs Way along the ridge of the Downs for the rewilding, space for photovoltaic energy, potential improvements to access and permeability by using existing underpasses that connect both sides of the site, enjoying the river, as well as integrating with the cycleway network and reusing historic railway routes. But at the same time, there are a number of constraints. For instance, there is no access from the upper quarry. There is a lot of shade and dramatic change in levels, deteriorated buildings, limited road access, and a lot of noise from the road. So I've designed a vision that consists of creating a community and places for quality living, working, and enjoying the South Downs. And given the vast size of the site, what I've done is to design a phased strategy that facilitates its implementation. And in order to bring life to the site step by step, while the community develops and creates a sense of place. So the first phase runs up to 2026, and the site will be opened to the public, and a spinal route will be created, punctuated by this new destinations within the quarry, and all of this will be connected with wider trails in the area. So some of the design principles that are envisaged in phase one include a new cycle bridge over the river following the railway line, a parking hub for dropping your car and walk, reinstatement of the historic conveyor over the road as a public pedestrian route, and the reuse of the main buildings for commercial, industrial, and visitor accommodation. Then there will be some steps all the way up to the top of the quarry and a lookout connecting to the South Downs Way. I've based some of the design principles on successful precedents in Europe. The idea is to bring the public in for enjoying and understanding the industrial landscape. And in this case, what I've done is to use conveyors and other structures that are reinterpreted for pedestrian movement segregated from vehicles. The second phase of development up to 2030 will create alternative routes and destinations connecting places focused on both recreation and working uses. There will be pedestrian access, and vehicular access will remain access as existing, to reduce landscape impacts and avoid over-dependence on car use. But the underpass connecting the two sides will be improved to facilitate permeability. So as I mentioned, some of the interventions would include prioritizing non-motorized movement under the road. There would be a number of outdoor and sport facilities integrated in the landscape, additional access to the upper quarry, and rewilding all these spaces and adding informal trails and sculptures, outdoor furniture using industrial machinery found on site, etc. So given the site's contamination in the central area, I would suggest only shallow structures and outdoor activities as preferred interventions in this area. I also consider that careful integration of these spaces with existing geological and ecological assets is very important to retain a sense of place and also to maximize the user experience. So 2033 will be the culmination year with residents moving into Shoreham Cement Works once the site is served by services, infrastructure, and businesses have settled. So as you see, most of the development takes place on the western side within already developed areas, whilst the site becomes more natural and tranquil the further it goes to the east. There are two areas identified for compact residential development, these two, which together with the riverfront restoration will complete the riverside area. Then there is also the quarry side, which will be complemented with a new open amphitheater space, which could be integrated in the topography, as well as some small pods or huts that could be used for workspaces or visitor accommodation in nature. But I also think that spaces should be multifunctional for people and for nature's benefit. And the public realm and the buildings should integrate well green and blue infrastructure. So for instance, the underpass under the road would also provide a natural escape for surface water to reach the river. So what I'm going to do now is to focus on how this strategy could be implemented in a particular area of the site.
Just 2 minutes, Rafael.
All right. So this plan shows the activated buildings and its uses. Outside, there is sufficient space for service yard, access, a public square, which will bring people together. Then the riverside building, given its privileged location next to the river, would be perfect for retail, food and drink, whilst the cement work building will have cultural spaces at kiln level and then workshops at lower level. The South Bay in blue, it's empty and could be filled with multi-story office space. So these drawings show also the public route created through the reinstatement of conveyors across the road and the installation of a lightweight footbridge across the building, which would use and fill the vast void under the roof, which would provide an excellent view of the historic kilns and the cultural space underneath. This will connect people with its industrial past of the site. So the elevated walking route over the road consists of a covered gentle ramp. A number of resting and viewing areas are designed within with glazed protrusions that offer frame views out into the landscape. And then the design reuses concrete from the site and repurposed metal cladding from other buildings. And it also features a green wildflower roof connecting both wildlife and absorbing water. This is a simple visualization of the lightweight footbridge over the kilns. And there are some also existing openings in the building, which could be retained or reinterpreted to bring light in and offer views out too. So finally, the new lookout at the top of the quarry will become a new gateway for walkers and cyclists of the South Downs Way, who will enjoy this phenomenal view of the quarry and the wider landscape. So to conclude, I just think that this is quite an imaginative but realistic proposal for redevelopment of the site that is both ambitious for future communities and the environment, and that could be delivered within the existing planning policy framework. So this is all. I'm very happy to respond to any questions.
Tremendous. Thank you, Rafael.